Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you. Everyone wants to live a happy and successful life, and nobody wants to live a mediocrity, always feeling inferior. In fact, anyone can be as successful and as happy as they want. You don't have to be lucky or a rocket scientist to achieve it. Joining us today is Sister Gopi from England. She is a spiritual educator who has studied and practiced Raj Yoga meditation with the Brahma Kumaris for 40 years. Her foundational work over the last 25 years has been developing and promoting the arena of inner leadership for young adults globally. So let us all welcome Sister Gopi.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you, Javine.
Nice to have you with us once again.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you.
Thank you. Over to you now.
Okay. Welcome to everyone. I can see there's souls from all around the world here. And it's interesting how these times now are enabling us to meet at a subtle vibrational level, even though we see each other's pictures. Often we think that a physical meeting is required to exchange vibrations. But I've been finding that even these meetings online can generate a very beautiful vibration as well. So welcome to all of you and thank you for coming. Of course, the topic of success and happiness is an overdone topic in the whole world. It has been the search and the quest for many, many. And I think first at an initial level, I'd like to talk about, has 2020 really been a year? It hasn't felt like a year. Well, whatever a year feels like to us, where we're used to doing our usual rituals of celebrations, of birthdays, of meeting people, and of achieving something. And yet, with COVID entering our lives early this year, we were all cocooned and isolated. And all of our usual escape routes and entertainment routes were paused for quite a while. So, what has this forced introversion done for us this year? And, I can speak for myself and also the people I'm actually with here, that many of them are reflecting on the quality of their lives and their markers for success and happiness. Because suddenly in 2020, health is your new wealth. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how much you may accumulate, but if your health is affected, your wealth means nothing. And there's this interesting dynamic on the global stage of this competition between, do we get the economy restarted or do we look after our health? And so it's very interesting that how this old adage and saying of health is wealth is so prominent at this time, because, a measure of personal happiness and success personally is good health. And I'm not just talking about good health as in physical health. I'm talking about physical health, emotional health, mental health, spiritual health. The ability to live as an integrated human being where, this body is a supportive instrument for the being inside. And that I'm able to give fruition to my thoughts, to my ideas, to my values, to my virtues. And I can use my whole being to be a brushstroke that paints and creates a picture of my own life. And yet somewhere along the line, why has COVID entered? Because there's something we've been sustaining in our lifestyles that hasn't been so clean. Our brushstrokes haven't given happiness to others. And I think it's a big stop sign to say, excuse me, world, the direction you're going in your lifestyle is unhealthy. And that has produced me, this little tiny little minuscule virus that nobody can see with their physical eyes and yet has brought the whole world to its knees. And it is a product of greed, of corruption, of anger, of whatever energies, low-level energies you like, that are so intertwined in our own spirits. Every time you get angry, you feed a collective anger. Every time you feed your greed, you're deepening that wave in the world. When you stand in front of your fridge door and you're making a choice about what to eat today, do you think that if I'm eating something just for my stomach because I feel, I want to indulge myself, or am I thinking that what's good for my health right now? Because those small, small choices affect a much bigger dynamic around us. And we know that what goes around comes around. And so as I make those choices, and if they're based on my greed or they're based on my conscience, they will create the kind of life that I live in. Eventually, they will create my context. They will shape the context of my life. And I think when we talk about success and happiness, why for many people the markers have changed this year? Because previously, a lot of the markers of success and happiness were based on egos and attachments. So how much have I achieved? How much wealth can I accumulate? How many positions can I have? How many labels do I have? How much am I recognized is a sign of my success. And my happiness is how much do people like me? And those are very, very superficial markers for success and happiness. And as we're forced into isolation and introversion, we have to deeply question and own our happiness and success to realize, well, actually, I am the creator of what I feel. And that's a big wake-up call, because it means taking full responsibility for what's going on inside. And I suppose when you release, and COVID has forced us to release the eyes, the kind of limited eyes that get fed, and the my's, we're becoming more humbled. Humbled in realizing that there is a bigger force outside of us. There are bigger energies at play around us. And we are a small part of a much bigger, if you like, drama, a much bigger energy creation. And yet, each one of us contributes to that collective energy movement, the drama of life. And what is my contribution to life? Because COVID is forcing us to think about our sense of responsibility. Not only responsibility for my state of being, but also my responsibility in what I'm contributing to the collective. Yeah, I can act out of greed because I think no one's watching me. But, whatever you do leaves a vibrational imprint in your being, and your vibrations can never lie. And so we kind of live in this false reality. Well, if I'm behind closed doors, nobody can see me. Actually, your vibration is felt right across. And you may walk into a room full of people, and because your vibration is disengaged and disintegrated, because you've acted against your truth, you've acted against your conscience, people will feel that. And people will have a second thought about whether they can trust you or not. So I feel that so much of our experience of success and happiness lies in integration, personal integration, creating personal integrity, and cleaning up our lives. It's interesting how in Hindi, when we talk about the word success, we use the word safalta. And literally, if I was to translate this word, it means to use everything in a worthwhile way. Now, just take a long, good look at your life. Has every part of your being in your life been used in a worthwhile way? Or is there some wastage somewhere? Is there neglect somewhere? Because, there's this saying that what you don't use, you lose. And the greatest thing that affects our happiness is a sense of loss, fear of losing something. So, simplifying our lives is what COVID is teaching us. In fact, I think COVID is teaching us three things: honesty, cleanliness, and simplicity. Get back down to these three core principles in your life, and you can start to cultivate your happiness. Be honest, make friends with your conscience, clean up your life, remove excess baggage, start to ensure that everything in your life has a beneficial purpose, from your possessions, your belongings. Am I living with more than I need? Because if I am, that's a drain on my mental energy at some point. You know how we go shopping and we buy things that we don't even need sometimes because, hey, it's a sale. And then it stays in our closet for days. And then every time you see it, the conscience bites. And that little bite of the conscience is just cutting away your happiness little by little by little. And the funny thing is the more we accumulate wasted, the more we experience a burden. And that burden doesn't allow us to experience the lightness of happiness. So it's so important, I mean, I'm just looking at it at the level of the physical. I spent quite a bit of time in Greece a few years ago. And I realized that when there's a crisis, the country's at the verge of bankruptcy, the government wants money. And of course, it's a country that's famous for tax evasion, income tax evasion, this tax evasion. But the way government gets money is to raise property tax, because you can't hide your property. And so on the one side, people are losing their jobs, and on the other side, their property taxes are doubling. And it's a mindset, that's, I always find Greeks are kind of Eastern Europeans. They have this mentality of the East, and then, look Western. But it's very similar to India, where the feeling of security of the family, security is based in property and accumulation of property. I can leave something to my children. Although, during the crisis, many of the young people were saying, well, if your parents want to punish you, they'll leave you their property, because the inheritance tax you have to pay on the property is just phenomenal. And, it's not worth having that property. So you've got this situation. And I met with a particular person who actually was in real estate. And she owned, quite a few properties. And, two of them, she went bankrupt, and two of them were, of course, possessed. And it was interesting what she was saying, was she said the other two that she had, she'd given one away to a charity organization, and it had become a shelter for the homeless. And it was useful in the community. And the two that she lost, tenants were moving out of it, and she hadn't made a plan for its use, of its beneficial use. And they'd just been sitting in her portfolio for like 2 or 3 years doing nothing, accumulating dust. And what she didn't use, she lost. So, our greatest cash in life, when we think of the concept of wealth, is not a paper note. It's the quality of our actions. It's what we do that comes back to rescue us and support us at a very powerful level when we need it the most. It will be a kind gesture for someone that in my time of need, that kind gesture will be reciprocated. because it's my savings account. My good karma is my savings account. And ultimately, your karma is your greatest cash. So examine very powerfully my mind, body, wealth. Is it being used in a worthwhile way? And then, of course, at a more subtle level, my internal state, my speech, my words. I'd like to emphasize words. Why? Because I feel that in the seesaw of balancing, the balancing act of life, which balance brings bliss, and we strive for a sense of balance, words play a pivotal role. They're the pivot in between. There's actions on one side, thoughts on the other. If I waste my words, and if my words have given someone sorrow, then you can imagine the conscience that bites, that creates disturbance in the mind, and the actions that then follow, and the reciprocation of that, which will continually throw me out of balance because of what I say. If you can start controlling your speech very powerfully and consciously, you will live a happier life at an internal level, a more balanced. There'll be a sense of more balance arriving in your life, because we lose balance because we think this much of what we think, we speak this much of what we speak, we do this much. There's huge imbalances at those levels. And so consciously, controlling my speech, it's in my hands. And we've somehow gotten into this habit of, just say what comes into your mind, like your mind is the biggest thing on the planet. It's not. It's nothing. Your mind is a projection of your past, of your habits, of the influences of your beliefs, your memories, influences of other people's stuff. Who you are is separate from your mind. Your mind is an extension of the spirit and the energy, but it's not you. And in one sense, we've kind of, it's a bit like this mother-child relationship. The soul is the mother, the mind is the child. And somehow the child's controlling the house and controlling the mother. And the mother goes, oh, I've got to do everything the child says. And the child just goes running around saying, I want this, I want that, I want the other. And the mother goes, yeah, of course, I can't bear it if the child's unhappy. And I'm like, but, wait a minute, you're the mother. And the mother's job is to exercise a balance of love and law and raise the child well. And so it's a little bit like we've given up our sense of self-awareness and created an egoic mind that we're slaves to. And so then whatever that mind says, we speak out, we think out, and we think it's called freedom of speech. And you can imagine what that kind of freedom of speech incites. It incites hatred in people's hearts. It awakens, the fire of anger, resistance, intolerance. And we see that on a global stage. And it's just one word, two words spoken, from a place of that egoic mind. So I feel that's such an important thing at this time, to bring into, to rein in, and to use my speech in a worthwhile way, to use my words to weave specialities together, to weave people's hearts together, rather than to break people's hearts. Then we talk about the subject of, I suppose, success then comes from that. You start to craft and create the world and the context that really supports you to be successful, so that every part of your being has an impact. Success is not about an outcome. Success is about impact. The impact and the influence you're having on the trajectory of people's lives, and wherever you are, is it helping people move towards their happiness and their sense of generosity and goodwill? Or is it making people fight? Is it taking people into a fight? Now, I suppose in the subject of happiness, uh, there's so many words in the Hindi language that are used for happiness. Kushi is perhaps the most prominent word. But then there's also sukh, which is a sense of deep intrinsic joy. And if I can't nurture my inner joy, then I can't sustain happiness in my relationships. So I have to claim back a sense of joy inside. And what is that internal sense of joy? It's, when you look back into your life, and just for a few moments, just play with me. Just imagine you're in a movie theater here. There's a room behind your eyes, and you're sitting in a movie theater, and you're watching a movie being played out. And it's the movie of your life. Now just pick a moment when you absolutely felt your best. The best of you was emerging. Recall that scene. Recall that moment. Recall where you were and who you're with. And now just tune into that feeling. What was it in you that emerged that made you be your best in that moment? What was shining through from the soul? Now I want you to just hold that feeling and allow all the context to dissolve. So the people to melt away, the situation to dissolve, until on that screen of your mind is just pure feeling. Even your body to dissolve. And just this being with this pure feeling is left. Now you're starting to touch a bit of joy. Because, our expression, soul expression, has little to do with our context. They are triggers. But there are moments in our lives when there is something deeply beyond the body, beyond our senses, that's triggered inside us. And it comes out to express itself. And when we hold on to that feeling and we move forward with that feeling, we can create more moments of joy and happiness. But if we try to recreate the context again and recreate the people and recreate the place again, because we think, well, it's only because I was in that kind of situation that I'll be happy, then you can't sustain your joy and happiness, because joy and happiness is not because of something. It's an internal feeling that's been triggered. And so there's something in our minds that has to we have to dismantle this belief system that I'm happy because of someone, because of a place, because of a circumstance. No, I'm happy because I am. And it does require, to cultivate a sense of inner joy, does require me to reveal myself to myself. Am I ready to see the beauty? Am I ready to accept the beauty of my self-respect? Too often we start with ourselves from a place of deficit. I don't have this, I'm not like this. These two words, I am, gosh, they can really destroy a sense of joy. I'm this, I'm that, I'm tired, I'm unworthy, I'm. Yes, of course. We are beings having a human experience, and the human experience is polarized. You are going to be victorious one day. You're going to be defeated another. You're going to be happy one day. You're going to have waves of sorrow the next. You're going to be praised one day. You're going to be defamed the next. It is a world of polarity. That's the human experience. What about me, the being? What does it mean to sustain my sense of joy and happiness in the middle of all this polarity? It means just to let it pass and not to over-identify with it. So I'm happy because of this, or I'm sorrowful because of this. It's a transient feeling. Human experiences are transient. They never stay fixed. Human energy works in cycles. So can I let it pass? That's wisdom. It's part of sustaining joy and a happy equilibrium inside. The other factor is that if we start from the place that originally we are happy souls, we're joyful souls, then the interesting question is, what is it that takes away my happiness? And I think, for many of us, I would just say, and I'm going to put it out there, and I would just say, remembering people. Now, why I say that? Because many times when we've let ourselves get hurt by someone or something, it sits in our system and it breeds anger, it breeds discontent. And it's like a virus. It's like a slow working virus inside our system. That's what sorrow is. And especially when there are people in our life that we've taken sorrow from and we feel uncomfortable with. And unknown to us, as we hold those memories, we're keeping those people alive inside us. And the influence of what they are inside us. And as we do that, that virus is eroding our spiritual health. It's eroding our happiness. It's eroding our sense of joy, where you then come to a place where you think, what's the point of life now? Whenever I hear those words from someone's mouth, I understand that they've been suppressed by some very unhappy memories. And so it's really important. I suppose we seek to find our identity in our human relationships. That's why we hold on, memories are so important for us. Yes, they are on one hand, but no, they're not on the other. Because even if I hold on to good memories, I've got this and I've had a good life, yeah, great. But what are you taking away from the memories? The feeling, the learning, the energy. You're not taking the person with you. That moment is gone, it's past. And sometimes nostalgia is another form of sorrow because we just live in the past. And nostalgia is not happiness. And of course, we can be indulgent in a bit of nostalgia because, hey, that's allowed. But, happiness is a personal choice and you choose your level of happiness. I think that's important to remember. It's a relative choice and it's very relative to each individual, the level of happiness they choose for themselves. So if nostalgia is happiness for you, great. But let me tell you something, it will inhibit your success factor. So, there is a personal dialogue we have to start with ourselves that, who am I? Who am I? And can I rest? And can I understand myself and make that a source of my internal happiness, my relationship with myself? And make that a source of comfort and joy and friendship, rather than having to lean on people the whole time and create dependencies. And actually, when I develop a healthy relationship with myself inside, I actually show up better in my relationships with others. when I'm integrated inside, I can show up well. I can show up with love, with kindness, with compassion, with a sense of peace and patience and lightness. And I think in every person's life, that's all they want from people. They don't want you to live their life. They don't want you to answer their questions. They may ask you questions, but at the end of the day, I've always found that people just want to figure out their own answers. And so, how can I be just to help them figure it out? Not to rescue or save them, but let them work it out, because that's part of their journey to reclaiming their happiness. And this is where I feel sustaining happiness and joy at another level. Meditation plays a very, very important role in cleaning and integrating and healing. And there are two levels of meditation, of course. There's the first level of meditation where it's very much the reconnection with the self beyond the body. You know, there's two parts to the human being. There's the being and the human. So we're very, very human and humanitarian, but what's the being? You know, when I just pause just to feel, you know, who is it that gives life to this body? What is the energy and the force and the being that breathes behind this breath? It's such a subtle incognito being. It's just quietly pumping out life. It doesn't want any acknowledgement. It doesn't need to prove itself. And can I go and just rest and be with it and enjoy its quiet, peaceful company? That's what meditation does. It takes you home. It takes you home inside to a part of yourself where you don't need to be stubborn about anything, don't need to prove anything, you don't need to depend on anything, but you're free. And then another part of meditation, as you practice more and if you're open to it, takes you to a connection with the divine source, the God, supreme, whatever you want to call it, and opens the door to that relationship. Because we need to be reparented again. Eh? I often find that as babies, we're more secure and more confident than when we grow up to be adults. The more we grow up and the older we become, the more insecure we become. And then we spend our whole life trying to find that simple, pure confidence and innocence again that little babies have. And I think this relationship with a spiritual parent is so important because it keeps that sense of, I wouldn't say naivety, but pure innocence alive inside us. We need to be reparented spiritually because, you know, the ego has played numerous games and has led us down false pathways of believing, oh, well, carrot dangling and thinking just that much and then I'll be happy, just that much and then I'll be happy. And yet, you know, when we reconnect and come home to ourselves and we then experience a long lost parent, oof, it's such a security to be able for the soul to know its eternal parent, to know that I am being parented in every moment, whether I'm conscious of it or not. And if I'm conscious and I can consciously stay open to that experience of being parented, oh, it's such a joyous experience. And I don't ever have to feel alone. And, you know, I have a companion that's an ocean of peace, that's beyond the polarity and the duality of human experiences, but is a source of truth, that's a friend to my conscience, and also has a vision of me beyond my packaging. So that companionship brings happiness. And somewhere we have to put that back into the jigsaw puzzle. That piece is missing. Yeah, we can take support from a lot of human beings, but still not feel happy because we're not touching the core of what the being needs. So, I've said a lot, thrown a lot of stones into the ponds of your, not stones, perhaps lovely little jewels into the ponds of your minds, and it's probably created some ripples. So it would be lovely to have a little chit chat and a conversation and just hear from you.
Thank you, sister. Indeed, there have been plenty jewels that you have showered upon us, I must say, today. And I really loved how you gave us the meaning of what is joy and what is happiness, and a little glimpse of it. Before we start with the question and answers, it would be nice if you could lead us in a guided meditation, how you said that meditation is cleaning, healing, and integrating. So maybe you could guide us to a few minutes of meditation of how do we meditate when we are feeling unhappy, or when we are feeling that we are not successful in whatever we are doing.
Okay, I would suggest I'll do a little meditative reflection. If you have pen and paper handy, wherever you are, just bring it out, because the reflective practice I'm just about to do with you, I'll explain it afterwards, but it helps to refocus and reintegrate so that you can step out of heaviness into lightness again. So if you've got pen and paper wherever you are, just go and grab it, and let's just have a moment so that everybody can settle down with their pens and papers and go and get whatever they need. Okay, so now wherever you're sitting, I'd like you to sit up straight. An erect spine is very important for movement of energy. So if you're stooped a little bit or sitting sideways, energy is not flowing well. And just breathe. Breathe and allow yourself to be completely present in this moment now. Just for a few moments, become aware of any discomfort you're feeling in the body. Maybe some tension in your stomach, maybe your shoulders, arms, hands, legs. And the next time you breathe, just take a deep in-breath and just feel every cell in your body, muscle expanding. And then breathe out and release the discomfort and tension. Breathe in again, expand everything, hold it, and breathe out. Release your breath. Just allow all that discomfort and tension to dissolve. And let yourself become comfortable in your body. Let your breathing settle into a gentle rhythm. And just feel the body doing its own work. You're the energy behind even this flow of breath that's watching everything. Now, I'd like you to visualize a room behind your eyes. It's an empty room, it's a theater, and you're sitting right in the middle of it. And there's a screen in front of you. It's blank at the moment. And on that screen is a question. Recall, what is your happiest moment in 2020? So for a few moments, the film of 2020 flashes by. Pause at the scene that was your happiest moment in 2020. Take your time and carefully find it. It's there. It could be a subtle feeling, it could be an interaction, it could be time that you spent with yourself. Bring that scene onto the screen. And let yourself feel happy. Feel that happiness again. Be happy now. And now let that scene fade away, and the screen is blank again, and you're left in that theatre with a feeling of happiness. Just be happy in this moment now. And now, on the screen of your mind, a second question emerges. And that question is, what is it going to take for me to sustain my happiness? The question on the screen of your mind is, what is it going to take to sustain my happiness? And I'd like you to take a few moments now and just write. Take pen and paper and just stream. What is it going to take for me to sustain happiness? Okay, now come back into that theatre and put your response up on the screen. Just read what you've written as a detached observer. And assimilate it. And now those words disappear and the screen goes blank. And you're back in that theatre, still in your happiness. So just have a moment alone, quietly happy. Now, you look back onto the screen and there's a third question, the last question. If you could describe your happiness as a metaphor, an image, what would that image be? And this is your calling card for stepping into 2021. If you could describe your happiness as a metaphor, metaphorically, translate it into an image, what would it be? And see that image come up on the screen of your mind. Take a few moments and let this feeling of happiness create an image. Enjoy that image. It's amplifying your happiness. You can see what your happiness looks like. And now, let that scene disappear again. And again, you're left quietly happy. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. That was beautiful. I would just like to share my experience. The last one that you said, metaphorically put it on the screen, and I saw a rainbow because I think rainbow is beautiful and rainbows make me happy. So yeah, all the colors in a beautiful sky, and it just brings so much happiness. So if anybody else would like to share, please feel free to share. What I've taken today from today's session, sister, is that living a happy and successful life is not all about driving a sports car or living in a big mansion. It is more about enlightenment from within. It's like the example of an egg which is broken from the out. If it is broken from the outside or by outside force, the life ends. But if it's broken from inside or with a force within, life begins. So great things always begin from the inside. And also a review of studies in Psychological Bulletin found that happiness doesn't necessarily follow success. In fact, it's the opposite. Happiness leads to success. So maybe if there's anything that you would like to add to that.
Yes, I completely agree with that. You know, happiness is a daily choice. And what we were doing in this reflection was we were pulling our internal resources together, focusing them. And that's why by the end of the reflection, you could see it and feel it. That's effort. When we don't make that kind of subtle spiritual effort to stay focused on what matters in our life, then everything else gets in the way and sets the agenda for our lives. where I'm not the owner of my happiness, but the society is the owner of my happiness. And the billboards outside are the owners of my happiness because they give me the images that make me think that is what will make me happy. So it's so important within a practice of meditation to do this creative work. It's not a passive process. It's actually just for a few moments disengaging from external triggers to do the real creative work inside, the rebirthing work inside of, of, of being happy. It is our right. We talk about human rights. Why don't we talk about spiritual rights? It's our right to live. It's our right to love. It's our right to be happy. And we need to claim those rights first. And as we claim those rights and we live those rights, everything else follows.
Okay, we have our first question is success measured by the amount of money you have in your bank or the sense of happiness and fulfillment inside you?
Well, I would want to ask the person that question back. What do they feel?
Yeah, I guess for everybody it's different. And even the level of fulfillment or joy that you feel within for everyone is different.
I think the very fact that they've asked the question means they know the answer. Otherwise, the question would never arise. If the amount of cash in your bank actually made you happy, you would never question it. And the reality now is the fact is more money brings more worry too. Because afraid of losing it. The more we possess, the more we're worried about losing it. And for me, it's about being wise. Wisdom in this aspect is to keep things circulating. Circulating benevolently. Everything moves in cycles. And so if I go against the cyclical flow and I try to hoard and feeling that if I hoard and I accumulate things, I'll be happy, I'm actually going against what's natural. It's very interesting how when there's a crisis in the world, people are happiest when they're giving to each other, when they're benevolent, and they're going out of their way for their neighbors. And yet it takes a crisis to bring out that kind of benevolence. It's almost like the giving starts to flush out the happiness again. So, why do we have to wait until a crisis? Why can't we just create a life like that? That we're keeping things. Yes, I manage my life with what I need, so that it doesn't, I don't have too many unnecessary things that drain me of energy. So I can learn to manage my life like that. And I'm not saying, just abandon. Life is a balance of, health, wealth, mental energy, but we need to put all of that to a level of need, basic needs where it's fulfilled it. And then I have to spend my time reflecting on how I can use everything I have in a worthwhile way. And I have so many more resources than just cash in the bank. I have my value, I have my thoughts, I have ideas, I have a potential. And sometimes we can put that potential in the freezer and just live on the basis of money. And we can create a very comfortable lifestyle with money. But because our potential and our conscience is in the freezer, we're not happy. We have everything, but we're not really fulfilled. So I'd say take your conscience out of the freezer, unfreeze it, make it your best friend, start cleaning up your life, live with what you need, and start circulating everything else, because you'll be surprised. In circulation is health and happiness. That's why they say love makes the world go round. Yeah, everything is circulation. Just keep it circulating. Don't stop. And even when people say, "Oh, I feel sad or happy," so what? Circulate. Keep moving forward. Because these are physiological experiences. Emotions is energy in motion. That's all it is. It's an emotion arises from something that is unresolved and unreconciled in your life. The emotion of fear is a product of what you have done in your life that is against your truth and your conscience. Remember the first time you told a lie. You would have felt fear. And then how many lies have you told on top of that? You had the option. You tell a lie, and then you have two options. You tell the truth and free yourself, free your conscience, or you tell another lie to cover up that lie because it's easy. And then the ego takes over. And then you have to put on a facade so nobody discovers what you've done and what you did. And then eventually you start living out that facade and you feel very far away from yourself. And you live with subliminal fear. That's just one emotion. And imagine what that does into the cells of your body. It's every so often you get panic attacks, anxiety attacks. And then it doesn't help that everything around us is also in that process of winter and degradation. So, for me, it's facing our emotions is being just truthful and accepting that, hey, yeah, maybe not in this life, maybe in this life, maybe in lives before, I've done some things that's been against my conscience and truth. And so this is just being settled. As the emotion erupts, something's coming out to go. It's an energy in motion, so let it go. And sometimes an emotion is stored in the cells of our bodies also. And so we will have a physiological feeling of an impact. And in those moments, you have to breathe, because science is telling us that an emotional impact lasts for 1.5 to 2 minutes maximum in your body. Now, in that 1.5 minutes, if I can have a personal practice of centering myself and just breathing through it, it will pass. But if I react in that 1.5 minutes and go, oh, what's happening to me? I feel I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other. I extend that 1.5 minutes and make it my suffering. And that's what meditation does. It kind of lets us step back, reflect on our lives in an honest and real way, and it allows the soul to breathe. Breathe. Whatever is happening to me is an act of graceful settlement. Let me just own it, breathe through it, be kind with it, compassionate with it, and let it pass. And make a promise to myself that from this point on, whatever I do, I choose a path of truth and honesty.
Thank you, sister. We have one question, but with also a comment here. As I reflected on the happiness moments of 2020, or the happy moments of 2020, what flashed on my screen was more about moments of gratitude. If I'm happy within, then I don't need to recall the moments of happiness. Rather, I relate the moments that filled me with gratitude. Is that right?
Beautiful. Absolutely. Because gratitude is a dimension of happiness, real happiness. And so I think absolutely. When you live in a sense of appreciation and gratitude, every cell in your body expands and is open to receiving love. Love from the universe, love from God, love and blessings from people. In fact, gratitude and a sense of gratitude protects you from taking sorrow. And so it's a very important dimension of feeling happy, is feeling gratitude. In fact, I had a similar memory prop up as well. So yes, absolutely.
There's another one. Living in the moment is about the state of my being right now. In these times of upheaval, being hale and hearty is the moment of happiness. Doing my Amrit Vela or morning meditation is the moment of utmost joy for me.
Scientific studies tell us the first 10 minutes of when you wake up in the morning, whatever thoughts and feelings you create set the whole mood for the day. So very, very important to use those moments early in the morning wisely. Instead of stepping into good morning mobile phones and Facebook and Twitter, I think we need to start saying a different good morning to our hearts and minds and the universe and God, and really generating a sense of joy and silence and peace and a reconnection first thing in the morning. And then it's like it becomes an anchor throughout the day. It's a safe place. You create your safe zone in the morning, which lets you touch base with it throughout the day.
We still have a few questions. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. What does living a blissful life mean? How is it different from happiness? Can one enjoy a blissful life?
Yeah, nice question. Happiness is an expression of me in my story, in my context. Yeah. It's me and my potential being exhibited fully, in all its colors. And that I'm happy because every bit of me is purposeful. It's in relation to my life also. Bliss comes from a union with the divine. And that's a very important part of my journey. Because bliss and that union and that sense of being combined with the one, that divine source, it absolutely finishes all trace of sorrow in my life. It dissolves sorrow like that. So blissful living is not about being cuckoo in the clouds somewhere. It's about really cultivating inside and opening my heart and mind to relating to God at a very deeply spiritual level and understanding the presence of this being right now, what the being is doing, what the intentions of God are, feelings, really relating to this being at a very deep level can bring a lot of bliss. And yes, it's possible. Anything I give attention to, energy flows from. Okay.
Yes. One more question. Can reflective thinking make people less happy, or quite the contrary? A constant reflection on important matters make them happier.
Can you repeat that question again?
Can reflective thinking make people less happy, or quite the contrary? A constant reflection on important matters make them happier.
um, quiet reflection is different to reflecting on important matters, I think. Being in a state of quiet reflection for me is being in a state of observation, watching, just sitting quietly and just watching what's happening. And that's really important because that's like breathing, it's like getting perspective. And then where we choose to put our attention and actually reflect on something more deeper is what can create a more specific energy. So what I choose to reflect on is important. Yeah. And most often what we choose to think about is things that are out of our control. So our reflection doesn't make us very happy because we're reflecting and thinking about things that we can't change. So it's so important to know that, in life is like cooking. There's many things on the burner. Things are cooking at their own pace. Whether I want the meal to be hurry up and made, it's going to be made at its own time. Things are going to change at their own time. So what am I reflecting on that is important, but within my domain? Right? So reflecting on the quality of my happiness, reflecting on how I can use what I have in a worthwhile way. That kind of reflection is purposeful, and it will make us more fulfilled and satisfied. But you do need to take a breather in between and stay in a place of quietness too, from time to time. The actor in a play is never on the stage the whole time. He goes off and sits in the sides and waits. And sometimes we need to exercise a bit of patience up here too, and just allow things to happen. Just watch. Daddy Janki, my personal mentor, the former head of the Brahma Kumaris, would always say, when I'd go to her about, finishing a project one and going to the next, and I say, Daddy, I can't see what's happening in the future. She would say, wait and see, wait and see. She had a massive power of patience in letting life reveal the next chapter, rather than me having to control the next chapter by thinking about what I have to do.
Thank you very much, sister. We are live on YouTube as well. So there is a comment. Very inspirational, Gopi Ben. It reminds me of our youth gathering days, if you remember, with Ravi, Shailene, and myself from London, from Sister Anita.
Thank you.
And there are many more others saying thank you very much for today's session. And thank you, Sister Gopi. Once again, you have given us a lot of thinking to do, a lot of points that we need to think upon, and create our New Year's resolution, I guess, based on that, at least for me, myself, so that my the upcoming year, is full of success and happiness.
So don't think about what the new year is going to bring, but powerfully see how you want to be when you step into 2021. And just see the magic that does in your life. So all good wishes to everyone. And I'd like to invite everyone to just step into a moment of silence, so that you can step back into that movie theater and see yourself abundant, filled with gratitude, and happy as you step into 2021. Om Shanti, and thank you.
Thank you, Sister Gopi. And wishing everyone today present with us here a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Until then, stay safe and stay blessed. Our next session will be in January. I have dropped my number, so feel free to contact me if any of you would like to know more about meditation or any questions. Please feel free, and I can even update you on the upcoming sessions. Until then, have a happy new year and a nice weekend. Thank you, Sister Gopi.
Thank you. And bye-bye to everybody.
Bye-bye.